Tremors shaking deep in the ground. Tremors roaring, making that sound. Hold on tight, don't let it pull you under. Tremors, oh tremors, rip like thunder.
Welcome to OtherWorldlyCulture.com with our special Tremors Retrospective. Here tonight, we are going to be talking about the Tremors film in 1990. And we have a great group put together for us tonight. Well, I'm not going to spend as much time as we sometimes do on introductions. We'll talk more about that at the end because I don't know about you guys, but I found a ton of stuff about this movie as I was going. But our resident author is here, Michael Cieslak. How are you doing, Mike?
Hello, all.
And we have our Princess Suzy MacIntyre over there. And then we have from the dark side, Tim Godak.
Dark side.
And you might be wondering about our other panelist. That's Stumpy. He's sitting in for Jeff Miller tonight. And you might not
notice the difference.
You might not, because he is slightly better looking. But we'll just go from there.
Jeffy.
I got a few introductory notes, and I just, as you know, I'm kind of a fan of the box office of these things. And some of what I'm going to tell you is going to explain why this movie kind of disappeared at the theater, but then kind of came to new life with video. Because Tremors opened on January 19th, 1990. Did everybody notice what month? January. That's the dumping ground. It's been the dumping ground for a long time. It did open wide. It was at just under 1,500 theaters at the time. It was against no new releases, but debuted at number 5. But it was behind Born on the 4th of July, which I think just got a whole bunch of Oscars at that time. The War of the Roses, which I know got at least 2 or 3 Oscars. Internal Affairs, I'm not sure about that one. And of course, the multi gigantic film that just was on everybody's lips because of the Academy Awards, Tango and Cash. In its opening weekend, it only made $3.7 million. Now, these days, that probably still would put you in number 5, but we're post-pandemic now. That was not good back then. And it was January, so things were going to be bad. A lot of that was blamed upon the marketing at the time. So
I saw it in the theater.
I saw it in the theater as well.
Times.
I saw it in the theater once. And then, let's talk a little bit about each of our experiences with the film before we get to the plot. My personal journey with this movie has been, I saw it in the theaters, loved it. And when it came out on VHS, I bought it on Columbia House. Do you remember Columbia House?
Oh, my God.
I bought it. It was one of my Columbia House VHSs.
Did you actually pay for it?
Oh, yeah.
The whole thing.
That was, I believe that wasn't in my opening salvo. I don't believe that was where you get 8 or whatever for a penny. I think it was one of them that I had to pay later on. And when I watched it, at the time I was going to college, so I set it up to my stereo and recorded the entire movie on a regular audio cassette. And it was exactly 90 minutes on an audio cassette. I could flip it over. You know, I cut a little bit of the open and the end credits. It dropped off of there. And I would listen to that every day in my commute going back and forth to college. And I can tell you there are certain ways that people deliver the lines and stuff. I just know immediately what movie it is based on those line deliveries. So, how did you get to see the movie, Mike?
I saw the movie during its original run in the theater. Absolutely loved it, much the way you did. And then a short time later, I met my current wife. She was not my wife at the time.
Okay.
She is my wife now and has been for many decades. I stated that very poorly. I apologize. And for those of you who don't know, she has this weird thing for Kevin Bacon. So since then, we have seen
Can you
it.
blame her? That's not a weird thing.
It's a weird
Find
thing.
me one chick out there that doesn't have a thing for Kevin Bacon.
No, I'm talking about the level. And I put this in the chat that we had in between us last week. But my wife refers to A Few Good Men as the movie where Kevin Bacon wears a uniform. So that I'm sure she would refer to Friday the 13th as that movie I hate because he gets an arrow through the neck.
I don't see anything wrong with the way your wife describes movies.
Since then, we have seen it multiple times,
Just saying.
including a number of times in different theaters around the area that I've done special midnight showings. And, of course, I upgraded slightly. We don't have it on VHS. We have the DVD, if I can get this without a huge glare. There we go. Purchased, as all DVDs are, from a Blockbuster Video that was going out of business.
Yes. Oh, I picked up so much stuff when Blockbuster went out of business, and a chain called Farmore. I bought a ton of VHS from when it went out of business. Suzy, how about you? How did you get started with Tremors?
I saw it in the theater with friends. After it had to have been either on a Saturday or a Sunday because the night before, my sister and all of her friends were out drinking in the woods. Timmy, I think by the junior high. And I would not have done something like that at that age. But I was hanging out with all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And Tony Clark, who was like the guy that everybody loved, had this black leather jacket with these fringes on it. And no one was allowed to touch his black leather jacket. But he just thought I was the cutest thing in the whole world. And he ripped a fringe off of that jacket and gave it to me. And none of the girls he was drinking with could believe that he would give me such a prized possession. So the next day at the movies, we're sitting there watching Tremors, and I think I paid more attention to playing with that stupid little black fringe than I did the movie.
Fantastic. Tim, how about you?
Okay, well, so hear me out. Now, the first time I went to Tremors, I actually saw it in the movie theater with some friends, and it was one of those experiences where I realized sometimes it depends on who you go to a movie with.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, and I don't want to spoil anything for later, but one of the reasons why I was a little upset at first was because it was on the heels of a lot of horror movies at the time. It was a PG-13 horror movie.
Yeah.
So when I came out of the theater, I was slightly disappointed because it didn't have the level of graphic violence that I liked and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about the movie and how much I enjoyed it. And I went back and I watched it with a different group of people. And it was a whole new experience. It ended up being a fun, good time. People were cheering in the crowd, and it was a great experience. And I ended up absolutely loving Tremors from that point on. So the first viewing, not so much. But second viewing, literally days later, I was in love with the movie, and I've been a fan ever since.
Fantastic. All right, we're going to move to the plot. And whenever you have a plot, the person you need to talk to is your resident author. So, Mike, tell us about the plot of Tremors.
Before I jump in, I'm going to tell Tim a little tidbit that I found out. This was originally rated R the first time it went through the that hated organization, the MPAA.
Yep.
Not because it had any gore that had to be cut out, but because there were so many F-bombs in it. And they cut the F-bombs down to just 2, but apparently there was somewhere along the...
I thought it was just 1.
No, they I think it's down to one in the final cut. Yes, but I know like in one sequence, that's why they say mother humpers.
Mother Humper and Can You Fly Sucker? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Tremors has an interesting play on expectations when it comes to plot. The basic plot, if you read the back of the DVD box or go on to whatever your streaming site might be, will give you something along the lines of people trapped in a small desert town and they're attacked by giant worms. And there he is, right there, good old Stumpy.
Stumpy is listening intently, by the way. He's a very good listener.
It does kind of
unlike the rest of us.
Yeah, what was that? Said Suzy, who is still multitasking.
Yes, I'm drinking and listening.
There you go. It almost sets it up as if you're going to have a hero's journey. And for those of you who don't know, the classic thing to look at would be Star Wars, where you have someone who loses everything and then goes off and has to go onto a quest and et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to go into the whole thing. But you do have a scene, excuse me, where they set out as if they're going to go on a journey, but they're trapped inside this area. It very much
thwarted
then plays off as a the kind of isolation horror that you usually have that only has one set or one setting at least, except in this case that one setting just happens to be the Nevada desert outside of Paradise. Another interesting sidebar, and something I don't think I ever noticed, but
Perfection. It's Perfection Valley.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I wasn't listening. What did he call it?
He called it Paradise.
I called it Paradise, which is a place in Michigan, but it's far away from where I live. I live much closer to hell. True story.
That's also called Detroit. Go on.
No, there is a Hell, Michigan. That's about a half an hour.
There is a Hell, Michigan. I have a T-shirt from there.
and they have a great ice cream shop there. I highly recommend going.
Okay.
Because everybody in hell
over.
wants ice.
Is it called Hell Froze Over?
I don't believe it is. Now I can't remember the name of it. I was there last year for my birthday.
Opportunity.
Neither here nor there. There are only 2 interior sets in the entire movie. Anyone want to guess what they are? Can you think of what they would be?
Chang's Market is the main one. I would think the other one is the basement for Gummers.
You are correct. The other one is the basement. And it never dawned on me that because it always does feel like it has that kind of claustrophobia, even though it is set up in a wide setting. And I think they do an excellent job at one point of pointing this out, how isolated they are, by specifically having Bert say, well, that's why we moved here.
Right.
Because we're enclosed on 3 sides. That's why the crazy prepper people put their bunker house there, was because they wanted that kind of isolation.
Geographical isolation.
Very good. This is a man who has listened to the
a
audio
lot of times,
only so many times. It does play also on the idea of the classic monsters, giant monsters of the past.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I do like about this is that they posit theories as to what the Graboids might be. Not to jump into anyone else's stuff, but they never say what it actually is in the first one, and that was very done for a very specific reason, to leave that open-ended. Plot-wise, I also thought it was kind of interesting that there's 2 things that this sets up very well, and one of the things that I absolutely love about the movie Tremors is how it sets up your expectations, and I don't know that you could do this now. The cover art, the movie poster art, just shows the mouth of one of the spoiler for a 35-year-old movie, and a little piece of me died just saying that this movie was 35 years old, since we all just admitted to seeing it in the theater.
Yeah.
They just show the tentacle portion of the graboid that comes out of the mouth. They don't show the giant one. And I don't know that you would do that in a film now. I think that you're so used to seeing, now I know what happens in this. But there's the scene where
and you might not remember this, but I do, because I just watched all the trailers and that. In the trailers, they only show the tentacles.
Yes, they only show.
They only show the
those
tentacles.
two.
Yeah,
they just show that portion, and right up till it's past the half-hour mark before we see the giant one. You have the little graboid portion that gets stuck on the back of their truck.
There must be a million of them. Nope, just one.
And you go into that scene thinking, wow, look at how the Earth is moving. That's got to be a giant thing. And they're all moving in the same direction. And then, surprise, no, it's not. It's actually one big one. And then you find out, no, it's not one big one. It was 4 big ones after they killed the first one. And look, there's Val being all happy because they killed one.
Right after he drops his first F-bomb.
Anywho, you also then have it sets up the expectation where the kills get progressively gorier. If you think about it, the first one that we see is old Edgar, who is completely bloodless. He's died from dehydration up on the light tower.
Right.
And then we've got old Fred, who's just ahead. And then you don't really get that kind of visceral gore from it until the doctor and his wife Megan get the doctor's death is it drips a little bit.
Right.
We then cut away again. The next 2 kills are they're off screen. The 2 people that go to check up on the road worker guys, but we've seen the road worker's helmet. It's all full of goo.
Right.
Before the doctor. And then you have Chang's death, which is, I'm going to come out and
Very sad.
not only is it very sad, I think it's a great tribute to Quint.
Yes, I agree entirely.
Very much like Quint.
I was waiting to
absolutely.
see if you were going to say the same thing, because everybody I talk to, they always say that's the fisherman scene. That's the fisherman scene, and it's not lost on me that in your main actors in the movie, he was one of them. You know, he was one of the guys that had the most experience going into this movie. So they decided that was a key role, and they paid a little bit more for Victor Wong, in my opinion. For that scene,
who is amazing in everything he's ever been in.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Yep.
I concur.
In this way is a lot like Jaws if, the monster actually worked.
Well, I've watched
reaction would be to that. I'm sorry.
I have watched the behind the
Thank
scenes,
you.
and they did not work a good number of times. There is a lot of work that went into each and every one of these sequences. But I think it is important to let younger people that might be watching this incredible document we're putting together here. This is not CGI. In the first movie, there's none. There's no CGI. It's all practical effects. A lot of puppetry.
Not to give away too much, because we'll touch on it later, but I was actually surprised. I thought the Graboid was always, like Jaws, an animatronic of some sort. I was surprised to find out that there was actually somebody at certain points in that suit.
Mm-hmm.
There's a dude in the suit.
One of my favorite actors as well. We'll touch on that later.
Ooh.
All right. I won't go any further on that then, because I was going to touch on something
Spoiler.
too, but I suspect that I don't want to be a spoiler for later on in the show. When everything is said and done, I think Tremors is a great big monster movie. It's not. They're not. The Graboids are not kaiju size, but it has that kind of feeling of something that may have come out in the 50s, like Them, which it is certainly paying homage to, or something where it the creature could have come from outer space. It could have come from scientists. It could have been a prehistoric monster. I forget what the fourth one that they think of.
Well, the one that they later go with is that it was a pre-dinosaur creature, Precambrian is what they say in the sequels. And my favorite line about that is they say, well, sure, everybody knows about them. We just didn't tell you.
I would like to interject for a moment and use
Certainly.
this in memorial of Jeffy Jeff, who could not be with us.
In memorial? Did he die?
Well, he might be dying. I don't know. But he did ask me to speak on his behalf and let all of you know that he never looked at this as a horror movie. To our sweet Jeffy Jeff, it is an action movie with monsters.
And I'm not going to disagree.
That's all.
Yeah, it's a lot like Predator in that way.
It's keep you up at night. It's not
Yeah.
one that is going to, make you triple check to make sure the doors are locked. But it is an exceptionally fun movie.
Absolutely.
I was saying it kind of pays homage to the old monster movies without going too far into that direction where it gets sappy. It is a movie in and of its own right. I've seen a lot of places where it's described as a horror comedy. I don't know if I would call it a comedy per se, but it definitely is a horror movie with humorous elements. And those elements never get so overloaded that you're like, oh, it's another joke time. No, you're like, oh, that was fun.
I think all the humor is situation based. It isn't jokes. It's like, oh my God, how many more people can die on their way driving to Bixby? It's those sorts of things. And I honestly laugh at this movie more than I did like the Ghostbusters remakes. All of them.
And still do.
We don't
that
even
was something
acknowledge
else
the
that I
remake.
thought was interesting was that I think that a lot of that and again, not to step on Suzy and Tim, but a lot of that humor comes from the
But
interplay
go
of the
ahead
characters who do seem like real people.
They really do.
You get the point that these two guys have been working together forever. And those laughs still came through when I watched it again today, even though I've probably seen this movie at least a dozen times.
Absolutely. All right. We're gonna.
How's that for a segue?
That was a great. And I was worried you were going to go through the whole thing, and we do want to emphasize, folks, you should go out and see this movie. There is not a place in the world where you can't find this movie because everybody bought the DVD and VHS at one point. It's at every garage sale you'll ever go to. It'll be there. It's at the library. You will find this movie without a doubt in my mind.
You can get the 3-pack, the 4-pack. Then when the 5th movie came out, you can get the 5-pack, the 6-pack, and there's a 7-pack.
Hold on.
Why we have all of those, I don't know. But
I have
Or you
right
can buy the
here
5-pack and
from
the
my
6 and the 7
local
movie.
from the local library. You can see it's a 14-day loan. That was the 6-pack.
There you go.
Which it talks about, well, this has all 6 movies. Well, they came out with one more after this, and they picked the 6th movie to be the picture on the front, one of the alternate things, which
so they didn't have to pay Kevin Bacon.
well, in my mind, that's the absolute worst picture, and I'll be talking about that at tedium later on, but it's very irritating. The Graboids themselves, you don't learn a lot, like they say, about the Graboid itself in the first movie. And as Mike mentioned, that was on purpose. They wanted that to be a mystery. And frankly, I wish they would have left it there. Because in the following movies, you learn a little bit more, and you learn a little bit more, and you learn a little bit more on what the problem started happening. And I'll talk more about this with the sequels, is in every movie, they had to come up with some new stupid thing about the Graboids, so is to keep interest instead of spending the time like they did on this first one in creating really cool characters to interact with the creatures. Now, sandworms, and at one point I believe they were talking about calling this movie is sand sharks or something like that.
Or something.
Right.
Yeah.
But there is a number of sandworms that have been in the movies before, and here's a comparative size chart. I actually think the one from Dune that's at the end, that size is incorrect. I think it would be so massive you wouldn't be able to see it in this picture because
This is not to scale.
This is not to scale because the Tremors creature is only about 30 feet long, which is how they described the shark in Jaws. Not lost on me that it's exactly the same size. Yes,
Most
yes.
overrated movie ever.
Oh, whatever.
And the whole thing goes down.
Yeah.
One thing
And
that I wondered about the sequels,
yeah.
and I will come out and I did not see all of them. I did not see this series. I've seen enough of them.
I watched them
to
all
know
this
that they
week.
did have different aspects of it, and I always blamed that on Aliens. This is the first movie. You've got this thing, and it's got a distinct life cycle, and I'm wondering if they were like, okay, how can we make this look cooler? Well, we'll give it a portion where it looks like this, and then a portion where it looks like this, and a portion where it looks like this, much the way the alien goes from face hugger implantation, da-da-da-da-da, and then as the movies progress, you then get to see other aliens like the drones and the Big Mama Queen.
I think some of it, I think you're referencing the wrong movie, actually. I think it's Jurassic Park. And I'll tell you why. In the second movie, they had Phil Tippett was doing effects for them, who also did Jurassic Park. And famously, he was the guy that worked on the Raptors. He was the one that really got that animation down to be smooth. Because he actually did it in stop motion before they figured out that the computers could do it even better and cheaper. And a lot of the reason they went to CGI in the second movie was the cash. It's very expensive to make the movie like this movie was made. And I think they figured out, hey, these things are very destructive. They're always breaking through floors. They're, doing all these things. If we have something that's walking on the ground, it isn't breaking as much stuff, and we can just, hide from it. And I think that's what it was, but there definitely is. It could be a combination of those two. Your aliens' life cycle. The thing that became bad is, there was a new piece of the life cycle almost every outing.
Right.
And it got a little bit crazy there. And we'll talk more about that with the sequels. What we want to do now, though, is we've been kind of circling this. We are going to go to the characters area. And in my mind, Jeff had said before we started the show that the movie's really about the worms, that the worms are the reason to be there. Well, the worms are the antagonists, but in my mind, it's these great characters that we're following throughout the film. So I'm very excited to hear. And Suzy, you were going to kind of pitch them out there, and then Tim was going to talk about the.
I'll talk about the characters, and Suzy can
talk
take
about
over
the
with
actors.
the actors.
Okay, that's what it was.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Suzy, what's
but I
first?
slipped because he doesn't know which character to talk about. So I did it by the top 10 most important characters in this movie.
Okay.
I don't care if you guys agree with me or not. Let's just be honest. I am.
I actually have 10.
9.
I have 10 here, so I'm going to be very interested if we got the same 10.
Well, there are
I
only
really
14
only have
residents
9.
of perfection.
Right.
There's not many
All right,
more.
hush. I technically only have 9 that were important,
Yeah.
but I like even numbers, and I needed a top 10.
Okay.
So my 10th person, because let's be honest, she played a school teacher in Little House on the Prairie, and what's more important to pop culture than Little House on the Prairie, and she was in Twin Peaks, would be Charlotte Stewart, who played Nancy.
That is the one I don't have.
Reformed Party girl.
Okay.
Just so you know, she's a Reformed Party girl who hooked up with so many Hollywood guys that I can't even mention who they are because I lost track. But she talks about everyone that she hooked up with in her book. But more importantly than that, she's a very badass breast cancer survivor. 79 credits and 8 horrors. 8 of those would be horrors. But I think the reason why she hooked up with so many men is because who doesn't want to say they banged everybody's favorite school teacher? But anyway, so she played Nancy in the movie. So, Timmy, what you got?
Well, Nancy, there wasn't too much for Nancy. Nancy was the mom of the little girl. They added a little bit of dynamic there with the mom and the daughter, struggling a little bit of home into the desert there. Not too much there. There's probably more interesting things to say about the little girl, who I also think, if I'm not wrong, was from Jurassic Park.
Interestingly enough,
Is she next?
Interestingly enough, is number 8 is Ariana Richards, who was in Tremors, Jurassic Park, and no one can forget she was in the Christmas classic Prancer. She did retire from acting in 2001 when she became a graphic artist for Universal Studios, and Steven Spielberg actually has some of her artwork hanging in his office.
Yep.
The two of them actually added a nice little added interest. Like, for instance, the scene when she's jumping around on the pogo stick, and Kevin Bacon,
The best part of
Val,
the movie.
saves her, and the graboid eats the pogo stick and then decides to regurgitate it because it does not like it. Definitely one of the best scenes in the movie for me. So it was good to see them a part of that. And yes,
And
that
it
is the
was
little
such
girl
a-
from Jurassic Park.
And it was a very good pop culture thing, too, because the movie was in 1990, but it's that cusp of, it was everything 80s put into the 90s before all the 80s went away. And what
Which-
is more classic to the 80s and early 90s than a pogo stick, or better
You know
yet,
you had
a
one.
pogo ball.
Okay, but pogo sticks have been around since the 60s, right, Susie?
That's not
They
the,
made a
yeah, but that's not the
resurgence.
point. The point is everybody.
I always associate pogo sticks with 60s and early 70s, but okay.
Well, you're
She does
wrong.
have a Walkman on during a great bout of it. That's what I would say is more
And the big
80s in
sunglasses.
my
And the
mind.
sunglasses,
Yeah, those sunglasses are very 80s.
the dark shades, yeah.
So which is next, Susie?
So, yeah. So number 9 would be, because you always have to have an annoying character that you wish would die, would be the kid, Bobby Jacoby, who played Melvin, didn't he? Is that who it was?
Yes, Melvin
total
Plug.
douchebag in
I
the
didn't
movie.
know he had a last name. Melvin Plug.
Yeah, Melvin Plug.
So he
Yeah.
is one of those people that, even though he was obnoxious in the movie, he was in just about one episode of every single TV show in the 80s and the 90s. He was in Different Strokes, The A-Team. He was even in Kids Incorporated. He was in an episode of that. Perfect Strangers, Hill Street Blues, Who's the Boss, Party of Five, Baywatch. He even appeared in 2 episodes of the TV show Tremors. But most notably, he was in the 80s movie Iron Eagle, which, how can you not love that? But the best part is he was Homeboy number 2 in the great 90s classic, Can't Hardly Wait.
Oh,
He has 85
Oh.
credits to his name. 7 of them are horror.
wow.
I did not know that about Can't Hardly Wait. He added a
And
good
now you
dynamic
know.
also. Yeah, he was a good character in the show. It was interesting. Always causing problems and kind of pissing off Red Ward's character quite often, to the point where he was getting ready to go out there and whoop his butt. But then, when he gets on top of the shack, you're actually feeling for the kid, hoping that he gets down safely and doesn't die.
No,
he was
at no
definitely-
time. That's untrue. That
You
is
wanted him to
not
die, didn't
true.
you?
You
I wanted him to
want
die.
him to die
You did. I
so
wanted that kid to
bad.
die.
I can't
Yes,
believe they
I
took
did
Chang
as
and they
well.
left him.
Yes.
Oh.
Interesting interesting you should say that. Number 7 is Victor Wong. He's very important to the movie for 2 reasons. One being that one of the only times that the movie is actually inside, like we all said, was his store. But secondly, I think he probably has more interesting things about him than anyone else in the actual movie. As far as, like, not the character that he plays, but him as an actor. I think he probably has the coolest backstory, the neatest things that have happened to him. I mean, you could go on and on about him the whole time. He has 39 credits, though, believe it or not, which I thought was
That's it?
had a lot more. That's it.
Yeah,
For a
that's
guy
surprising.
at least.
Yeah.
The greatest of all time, though, was one of the best ones, Big Trouble in Little China, which is one of my favorite movies.
I love that movie.
Not to mention, he was in that, I don't even know how many there are, but that movie, Three Ninjas. There's Three Ninjas Kick Back. I don't know. I've never seen them. I know nothing about them. I just know
I have to add my personal favorite, The Golden Child, when he picks his nose and leaves it on the... Anyway, you can just let that freeze up.
Interesting actual fact about him, though, is as a kid, he had tuberculosis, and he was forced to live in a sanitarium for a while because of it.
Wow.
He was quite the ladies' man, though. He was married 4 different times, and his little droopy face wasn't from any of the strokes that he had, but he actually had Bell's palsy. And he actually credits his Bell's palsy for all of the movies that he got, saying that people just kind of liked that effect about him. He was an award-winning journalist before he went into movies, which was important to know because he was like all big about all the facts and historical things and all of that, which actually was a negative to him because he was in, what the heck is that movie called? I don't know. It's a popular movie. It won an Oscar, I think. The Last Emperor. But he was in that, and most of the scenes got cut because he got into a pissing match with the director because he kept pointing out all of the historical inaccuracies about him. But the saddest thing about him, and I don't like to be sad, but it's important to know that he was, like I said, he was all into history and all into everything, and such this guy that he was so stressed out from living in New York City during 9/11 that he actually went into heart failure and died the day after 9/11 happened because he was so stressed out.
He was so worried about his 2 kids who were in the New York area, too. I was just reading that he apparently stayed up for like 2 days straight.
Wow.
2 days straight, and and he had already had a bunch of strokes before that, so.
That's a shame.
Rest in peace, dude. Everybody have a drink.
That's a shame. Absolutely loved Walter Chang. Absolutely loved his character. Loved that he was always trying to make a quick buck. Loved the store, all the way down to the cooler that made a bunch of noise in the corner. Yeah, one of the best characters in the show. It had the most memorable death, I believe, in the movie, in my opinion. Oh, yeah. And like you guys said, was the throwback and homage to Quint. Yeah, great character.
So who's next, Suzy?
Next is number 5 and number 6. I don't know which one's what. You can decide. They're neck and neck because they are kind of a pair. And who screams the 80s/90s more than the 2 of them, but Reba McEntire and Michael Gross. Reba, I mean, there's nothing to say. She's Reba. She's the queen of country, and she's had 2 or 3 TV shows that are literally, she's the main character. Mm-hmm. There's nothing more to say about her other than this was her first movie. I think it was her first acting role, if you don't count music videos.
It was.
And
that was a big selling point for the film.
Yeah, and then obviously Michael Gross, who was Alex P. Keaton's dad for more episodes than I think I even know how to count for Family Ties. And interestingly enough, he wrapped up filming Family Ties forever, and then the very next day he went on to start filming this, which brings you to the question, because he's the only one who's ever been in every single Tremors movie, and he was in the TV show.
Yes.
So which role of his is more iconic? Being on Family Ties or being a Tremors legend? I don't know.
Tremors.
I think Tremors, because a lot of people try to find younger people that have been exposed to Family Ties. So Family Ties has not aged. I don't even know which streamer it's on. And I know I want to rewatch them. Yeah, I want to rewatch them.
If you said Family Ties, I think the first person you would think of would be Alex P.
Alex
Keaton.
P. Keaton.
Right, Michael J. Fox.
You wouldn't go necessarily to his parents, right?
Yeah, whereas Michael Gross, even though in every one of the films, I think even the last one, he was and Michael Gross in the credits, he was the lead for 3 through 7. He was the lead.
Or bastard.
Yeah.
And even Michael J. Fox isn't remembered for Family Ties. When you think of Michael J. Fox, you think of Back to the Future or something else.
Right.
Not necessarily
Okay,
Family
fine,
Ties.
y'all win.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well,
If I was on a
it was a
different
valid
podcast-
question. It was a valid question. I think he's very happy he found that movie, you know?
If I was on a different podcast, I think people would disagree with you, but I'm willing to take it and say, yeah, Tremors. Anyway, so there you go, Timmy. What do you got for their characters?
Now, these two are fantastic characters. I really enjoy them. They're the doomsday preppers living in the basement, getting ready for the worst case scenario. I like the fact that they were sort of nutty doomsday preppers, but they never made them look ridiculous. They never pushed them too far where you lost their respect. You actually felt that they could handle the situation, you know? I like that about them. So I really enjoyed them. It was cool that they were actually able to kill one of the Graboids. So that was cool. And as I'm sure Tim will touch on the sequel, he has one up on his wall. I believe it's in part 2.
Yes.
You know, so yeah, these definitely great characters that definitely push the movie into a new dimension. I liked the fact that at first they trust Kevin Bacon and everyone, and then they leave, and then when they're out there on the rocks, they're a little upset that they got dragged away from their safe haven, you know. But I thought it was a very interesting dynamic between especially those two characters and Val and Earl.
Well, and I think Michael Gross was always the more reactionary character, and Heather is evening him out all the time. It's like down, Bert, down.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he thinks he knows everything, and, you know, all those sorts of things. So when Reba McIntyre left, it kind of made Bert become a little more ridiculous as the movies continued.
Yeah.
And that hurt. But we have a lot of people on our call here today that actually saw this movie in the theater. I remember in the theater when they're in that basement and that thing busts through their the bricks into the basement. I remember the audience kind of going with it when it first busts through the bricks. But the whole place went bananas when they both back up to that wall of guns that they had. And everybody's like, yeah, get them! You know, it's just one of those great moments. And then, you know, the whip zoom back to this poor sandworm that had no idea what he had been doing. And the release when Michael Gross says his line at the end really, really does cap off. So yeah, I think your numbering though, I almost called you Heather, Suzy. I think your numbering is accurate though. I think it's unfortunate that Tremors became the Burt Gummer show over time because a lot of these characters you haven't gotten to yet are I think would have been more fun to watch in the sequels. So
I think that Bert has one of the best bits of business too, and I think this really humanizes him. There's a point right before they take off where he flat out tells Melvin, "I wouldn't give you a gun if it was World War III."
Yeah.
And then they're all stuck there, and Melvin is refusing to run, so he hands him a handgun,
right,
and then as soon as he starts running, Melvin pulls the trigger and nothing happens because it's not loaded.
right.
And then the payoff
There's
to
the
that, of
pick.
course, he says, yeah, but it got you to run, didn't it? But if you watch closely, it really sells the Bert character as someone who is what we would now call a prepper and does actually know what he's doing, because despite the fact that he knows he gave this kid an unloaded handgun and it was in his sight the entire time, and there's no way that this kid could have loaded it. The first thing he does when he gets that back is he opens the cylinder to make sure it's not loaded,
Yes.
and then closes it and puts it away.
Right.
And I was like, that's one of those bits of business that just sells that character perfectly.
Well, I think what's great about the character is the irony that it lives under, because they're prepped for absolutely everything that could happen, except for the one thing that happens.
Except for, and I quote, goddamn underground monsters.
Underground monsters. Dirt's the best bullet stop there is.
Sorry. Oh, good timing on that.
Okay, Susie, who's next?
Oh. Sorry, I quit paying attention. Number 4. I don't know if she was really that important, but she has to be in there. But it's Finn Carter who played the chick Rhonda, because you have to have a girl that play off the guys in the movie. She was more of a theater girl before she started her movies. She was in How I Got Into College with Anthony Edwards, which it's a really stupid movie, but I absolutely love that movie, and I make every single kid who applies to college watch it. So if you haven't seen it, you should watch it. Oh. But she did a bunch of TV movies and TV shows. I don't know. Don't really care, because she hasn't really done anything in many, many years, ever since she got arrested for credit card fraud. So clearly she didn't make a lot of money. 34, or she did, and she's just that stingy. I don't know. But 34 credits for the horror. That's all I got.
Okay. Tim, what have you got to say about our character?
Well, the Rhonda character was just your basic seismologist. She was there so that you could have Val and Earl trying to make their assumptions about what they think's going on, and then she adds a little bit of scientific explanation so that the two of them could bounce back and forth to give us a bit of what's going on with the plot and where these things may have come from. She was interesting. She added a little bit level of that love tension too between her and Val, even leading up to their kiss at the end. So I did like
that she was the love interest, but yes, she was also very realistic. And I mean, she was cute, but she wasn't like the sexy bombshell or whatever. She was just a basic girl, but she
was not what Kevin Bacon was looking for. That's exactly why he took all the blonde pictures down from his visor in his car. He didn't want her to see what the girl actually was.
Were you aware that the final kiss was not in the original cut of the film?
I actually was aware of that. Yes.
Yeah, they went back and shot that after they had already pulled down all of perfection. The entire town was already thrown away, and they said, we got to have a final kiss with those two. So they just found a stretch of desert, and they built kind of the front of a couple of the homes and redid it. So that's why they have that kiss basically on the street, not in front of Chang's.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was surprised about that because... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, I was surprised because I consider it one of the best. It's one of the best kissing scenes because Kevin Bacon kind of looks like he doesn't know what he's going to do, and he does this kind of like half head nod shake or something, and he's like, I'm just going to go for it. I just love that interaction.
What I like about that character is that...
And to Michael's wife's point...
I'm sorry?
Well, but to Michael's wife's point, let's also be honest. What female else doesn't want Kevin Bacon to
for crying out loud.
We're going to have to spritz her off with water in some of these shows. Right? Oh, my God.
What I like about Rhonda's character is that they could have just completely made her a damsel in distress, but they made her intelligent. She's arguably the smartest person as far as strict education goes in that whole county.
Right.
By leaps and bounds. But she's the one that comes up with a way of getting off of the rocks and back to her truck. She's the one that dives through the truck window and steers them out of there.
Right.
Even though she can't see what she's doing. And she's the one that saves Kevin Bacon by opening up the water tower and causing the Graboids to come back.
If you watch the movie
she actually is very important. It's just
I'm just saying that I'm glad that they didn't
we
just make
have
her
Kevin Bacon.
she's just there to be saved by Kevin Bacon, although he does get to most very memorably, and I'm surprised that no one else brought this up, yell at her to take off her pants.
Well, that's something important to do.
But that's why I'm saying she clearly is important. I just couldn't think of anything she did with that was important because Kevin Bacon's on the screen.
Well, actually, now think about this. Her character isn't the damsel in distress. If you look at the 1950s monster movies, she's not playing the part of the damsel in distress because that's a very specific type of character. The only type that's like that is maybe Mindy in the whole thing. That's really a damsel in distress. She's very much the scientist, which the scientist usually in these movies is the exposition machine. This is how they came around. Everybody knows about them. We just didn't tell you. You know, that she would just know everything about them. And what's fun about her character is she says, why do you think I would know? This is just craziness. I don't know how this happened. You know, I think that's what makes her so much fun as a character. And I also like that she comes up. If you watch, Val and Earl are the leaders as you go through the movie, and yet they don't come up with any good plans throughout the flick. Almost, you know, on and on in the movie, they're always talking about, we got to have a plan, we got to have a plan, and every plan they have, they throw out immediately when somebody else comes up with a plan. Oh, don't want to winch it. Don't want to winch it. You know, they're like always just spitballing the whole time.
Another interesting little tidbit I saw.
Moving on.
Oh, hold on. Tim had something else on Rhonda.
Another little interesting tidbit. We were talking about them escaping from the rocks. I don't know if you could consider this a set, but I also read that whenever they were pole vaulting from boulder to boulder, that was actually, those were set pieces. They put fake boulders there and built little area where they could do that in a safe environment. And actually there was only one boulder out there. You guys saw that also.
Yeah, almost.
And they blew away at one point.
Yes. All the boulders you see in the movie are stunt boulders.
Fake shimps.
Right. Exactly. Susie, who's next?
Okay, moving on. Number 3 is Fred Ward, the good-looking, chiseled veteran actor who, more importantly, is also an actual veteran of the U.S. military.
Yep.
I would say none of his movies are standouts, but that would be wrong because how can you not mention his Escape from Alcatraz and The Right Stuff and Uncommon Valor? He's been in all of those like great movies, but all of his good work kind of plummeted and you forget about it because he was in the awful Naked Gun 33 and a half or whatever. So that
33 and a third
that he did.
Remo
Williams, I was about to say, and with Mike being on the line, you
I forgot I'm on a show with a bunch of guys. So
well, Remo Williams was supposed to be a series of movies that they put him in charge of, because it's based on, and let me see if I remember correctly, is it the Destructor novels that it is based on, the character of Remo Williams? They really thought they had something there, and it just didn't connect with audiences for whatever reason. But I will tell you,
part of the reason being that it was the Remo Williams and the Mac Bolan books were the guys' version of the Harlequin romance, where you had a new one that came out every 5 to 6 weeks, and those did not at all read humorous. And Remo Williams is a very funny, absolutely ridiculous movie.
Yeah, it's about 150 or so books or something like that. I've read one. It was decent. It wasn't great or terrible. It's corny. It's campy. But it isn't flat out and out campy like the movie was. And but for my money, he played Gus Grissom in in the right
So
stuff,
well.
he is one of the best things going in that movie. Just the best.
89 of his credits, 7 are horror movies, 3 of them are the Tremors movies, which apparently we will talk about later. So, moving on to number 2.
Hold on. You didn't give Tim a
We
chance.
got it.
No, that's
Yeah, talk
actually
about
okay.
Earl.
Let her do number 2, because to be honest with you, I like to talk about these two as a group.
Okay.
See, I know
You
what
better
I'm
hope
doing.
Kevin Bacon's the next one then.
I think I
The
know where
next
she's
one
going with
is
this, and I
the
like
guy that was drilling into the highway. He was really important.
What, just shut up and let me talk?
Oh my
Number 2
God, that's all we do
Kevin
is let you
Bacon.
talk.
What?
You heard me.
No, actually I didn't. I lost sound.
That's okay.
Sounded like a good thing. What? Hello?
Go ahead.
Hello?
Can-
Okay. No, I really didn't hear anything.
No, I'm just saying all we do is listen to you.
Oh, hush.
Here it is.
Kevin Bacon is the number 2, Valentine Val McGee. I don't know. I will forgive that he's a Philadelphia boy because he didn't spend much time there, and it's Philadelphia. So he has that negative, but it's Kevin Bacon, so we got to look over that. He has one of the longest running Hollywood marriages to Kira Sedgwick. He's in a band with his brother. I think everybody knows all of these things about him. It's fucking Kevin Bacon, for goodness sakes. He's the main character in my second favorite movie of all time, Footloose. He originally hated this movie, but I think everybody knows that too. Because again, it's Kevin Bacon. I don't think I can say anything about this man that people do not know. He only did this movie. See, it's Kevin Bacon. I can't even talk when it comes to Kevin Bacon, for goodness sake. Yeah, he did not want to be in this movie. He did it. He hated it. He thought his career was going to be over. He really thought that way after it kind of flopped, but we talked about that earlier. It wasn't until years and years later that he finally embraced it and said it was the most fun he ever did. He's pretty much been in everything, hence the whole game, 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, which was a lot more fun before IMDb came out, and you could just look at it, but I digress because I don't know what I'm saying because I'm talking about Kevin Bacon, and it's Kevin Bacon. We should, see, that brings me to a point. Kevin Bacon is so amazing, and we want Cieslak's wife to watch this show. He should do a retrospective just Kevin Bacon. But I don't think we have enough time for that.
For those
it would have
that
to be like a series of shows.
we're at the 45-minute mark when Suzy suggested another new show for Tim to produce.
If you 45 minutes, come
But
forward
I'm
and
not
grab your
wrong.
prize.
All right.
I think
I'm
this
just
shows
saying,
how
I'm
early
not
this was in
wrong.
Kevin Bacon's career, though.
Actually,
Because although the first shot is of his butt, it is clothed. So this was before he started showing his butt in all of his movies.
yeah.
I think he's actually showed full frontal before, too, hasn't he?
Yes, he has.
Yeah. I think
Unfortunately, he didn't in this one because, again, the first shot of the movie is him urinating over the side of a cliff.
in this movie, I think is kind of like the midpoint of his movies, because before this he had what I'll consider his kid stuff, the Footloose, and where he was very, very young, and after this he took much more adult roles.
Well, see, I'm not
Meaning
even done
grown-up
talking
roles,
about him.
not adult roles.
Correct. I mean, see, I almost said
I don't know.
mature.
Have you seen all of his movies? Some of those could be considered adult movies. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm saving all of my Kevin Bacon trivia from this point on so we can have a Kevin Bacon retrospective or an entire series of them. I don't know.
Like maybe
We'll
6
have
whole
a
degrees
countdown,
of
his
it.
top 5. Yes,
Okay.
we should. It should be a 6-part series and be the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. Yes.
Okay, we're moving to Tim.
Okay, moving to Tim.
I'm not done yet.
That's okay.
He's been in 111 acting credits, 14 are horror. For those of you that can't get enough of him, his latest show being The Bodensman on Prime. I'm still not sure if I like that one or not, but I'm willing to give it a try because, again, it's Kevin Bacon. I'm 3 episodes in. His first ever movie was Friday the 13th, which it's horror, and that's probably the basis of everything we do. And I am most excited about the fact that the Toxic Avenger movie he was in is finally coming out. That was filmed, I think, actually in 2023, but it's finally hit.
I think it might have been wasn't it even earlier than 2023? It seems like I've been hearing about that sitting on the shelf for longer than that.
No, but I'm excited about it for many reasons.
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Shameless plug. Yeah, and then also because of B, shameless plug, it has my Toxie people in it. So hopefully we'll see more of them as well. But yes, so that is number 2, most important. Go ahead, Timmy. Talk all about them.
Which I'm sure we can all say good things about these guys. Like Mike said, from the opening scene where he's peeing over the hill, which kind of sets up a little bit of the isolation of the film, kind of lets you know where they're at. From after that, with him fumbling to find the packs of empty cigarettes, to him saying he's a handyman and missing the nail how many times trying to put the barbed wire on. Him and Fred Ward were absolutely phenomenal together. They really led you to believe that they worked together for a long time, all the way up to complaining about who's going to make breakfast, the constant games of rock, paper, scissors that Kevin Bacon seems to always lose. The 2 characters were phenomenal. Definitely playing the handyman who were kind of not quite as good at their jobs and trying to make a fast puck, looking to get out of there, and just like Mike said, getting ready to go on an adventure and get the heck out of there, and they're blocked every way along the way and end up back at home. Val ends up being the leader of some sorts, but he's actually, like you said, not the smartest one in the group, but his ways seem to help them get through everything they need to, and he ends up proving himself to be a great leader, and he gets the chick. And you've got Earl the whole time as the straightforward, straightforward. I don't know what to call him. I get a kick out of all the faces he makes in the background every time somebody says something. He's got a face or a comment that you got to pay attention. He eats his lines up. I absolutely love.
He steals every scene. He steals every scene.
Absolutely.
I particularly like throughout the movie. He is, every time Kevin Bacon and Finn Carter are interacting, he's in the back just smiling like he knows where it's going. He knows exactly what's happening. And there's actually a cut scene in the movie where he talks to Finn Carter's character and says, he's really a good guy, and basically trying to set up his pal with her. And I'm so glad they cut that out, because that would have been too much. Just seeing his expressions was enough. You get the idea that he has put his stamp of approval on this love affair. And
you could touch base on his character a little bit more in the second one.
In my mind, it's these 2 characters is the reason the movie's so good. Yeah, they absolutely interact so well. And I was thinking, that's the problem with all the following Tremors. They tried hooking up Earl Bassett with others in the first one, and then they went over to Burt Gummer, and it's like you're getting further and further away from the thing that worked. The thing that worked was this interaction between almost, Kevin Bacon.
I wouldn't say a paternal.
It's like brothers. It's like siblings.
I was going to say it's very much an older brother, younger sibling kind of relationship, from the kind of bossing around and like the look that he gives him. You were talking about the relationship between Val and Rhonda. The look he gives him after he has taken himself at the end of the movie, where he's sort of taken himself out so these 2 have a chance to talk, but he's still eavesdropping from behind the hood of the truck. And that look he gives him, like, dude, what the hell? Why are you not moving in? And Kevin Bacon actually goes, yeah, I'm working up to it. But not only that, but,
yep.
Hey,
you're
she's back.
She's back.
But also, you can see kind of like a point of pride, almost an admiration for the person that he's becoming, because they really are schlubs at the very beginning. But when
they're just
Val-
schlub pluses by the end.
but when Val punches Earl to be the one that runs out to get the tractor, there's a look that and I think this is just has something to say about Fred Ward acting without even having to say anything, but the look on his face is, for just a second he's annoyed, and then you get this look of admiration where he says something along the lines of, stupid suicidal son of a bitch or something like that.
Yes, exactly.
It's very much a big brother, like, look at him go.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I have said ever since I've seen the movie I'm about to reference, I said if they were going to make a second Tremors and they didn't have Kevin Bacon, what they needed to do was find two new rednecks. And that interacted well. And they actually kind of tried that in the second one by giving Fred Ward a little sidekick, but that sidekick did not work at all. But when
It didn't work, no.
when I saw the movie Tucker and Dale versus,
Yes.
I was like, those two guys need to find a graboid right now. Because they had the back and forth going on. Okay, now that you're back, Susie, do you want to give us that last one?
More importantly,
Yeah.
we have the most important actor in the entire movie,
Okay.
who, ironically, doesn't even get credited for being in the movie. It's Tom Woodruff Jr. Who did he play? Anyone?
He was the Graboid.
Hello?
He was the
Yes,
Graboid.
he played Graboid. He is
Oh.
the most important character in the entire movie. He played the Graboid. He played a demon. He's played a lion, a crocodile, a creature in the Leviathan. He was freaking Pumpkinhead.
Yes,
He's played a
Pumpkinhead.
gorilla in like 27 different things. And more importantly than anything, he was the little Gillman monster in the Monster Squad, because
Yes.
the Monster Squad is, let's be honest, an epic freaking movie. I'm also pretty sure that aside from Kevin Bacon, he's the only one in this entire movie who's ever actually won an Oscar. So, that's pretty much it. Other than he also does makeup and special effects. So you got to give him a shout out for The Nun, Annabelle, Batman versus Superman. The list goes on and on. Oh, he was in Smile. He was in It. I know there's like 27,000 other things. The list goes on and on and on and on. Like 50% of his credits are all horror. That's all I got. But yes, he's
Okay.
the most important one. So have at it, fellas.
And I agree with your list. I completely co-sign your list.
See,
Yay!
there is two other main characters out there, but one is Nestor that goes up on the antenna and gets knocked over. I always liked
Miguel.
his character, that he was kind of a creep, but you didn't hate him, which I thought was a difficult role to have. But one of my favorites is Miguel. He did come back for the third movie. He came back. And I always liked that he was kind of the guy that says, yeah, that's good, but you can do this and it'd be better. And, we can't all fit in your bulldozer. He was good at that stuff and in important roles. So I always had a soft spot for Miguel. He's also one of the characters when you're listening on an audio cassette, you know immediately when it's Miguel that's talking.
Well, just like we can't all fit into the bulldozer, we can't all fit into Susie's top 10. So
All right. Yeah, I had them prepared, so I had to give them a little shout out. I'm going to talk about the sequels. I'm not going to spend a lot of time because this retrospective is about the first movie. And really, as you go along through the movies, they get worse and worse. Now, this is the poster that came out after the original poster. This is the poster for Tremors that was on the VHS. You might say that might have helped with selling the VHS. But this is that particular poster. I tried looking for the one you're talking about with the three the three tongues going up, basically. And I couldn't find that thing to save my life. But I know exactly which one you're talking about. After Tremors, they came back quite a few years later with the second film called Tremors 2 Aftershock. All of these stinking movies have, subtitled names and all that. Where do I want to go with it? The movie was made in, it's kind of weird. I think it's about like 97, 98, but in the database I'm looking at, it says 2006, which I know is absolutely wrong. But it was made quite a few years after the first movie. Kevin Bacon didn't want to come back, and that meant like they cut the budget to the extent where it was a TV movie. It was made for home video because they were seeing that it was doing great on home video. And they actually, after seeing it and originally screening it, they thought, this is maybe good enough. And they decided that they would give it a brief theatrical run, which they did. This is still a pretty good Tremors, but you don't get that back and forth between Val and Earl, which definitely takes it down a notch. But this one is probably on those streaming live channels, like Universal has one, and on all the different things where they have the live thing. It seems to be on some channel at all times. I don't know what it is about this movie. It must be cheap to reshow, but this one is out there all the time. In fact, a lot of these movies are kind of difficult to find on streaming. It is interesting how I had to go run to the library to see some of these. Aftershocks is the one that started the campaign of the crazy life cycle of the worms. After the worms, at some point, they kind of go into a coma, die, and 3 shriekers emerge from each worm, and they are basically heat-seeking raptors. That's what they are. They can see heat, and are raptors. So instead of being quiet, now they have to hide their heat signature. And honestly, as we get through the movies, by the 7th movie, when they go to the infrared vision, which is the shrieker seeing people, they literally hit the Predator sound effect of, and they go into the infrared. And I'm like, no, that's supposed to be the sound of the Predator's like super coat of armor. That isn't a biological thing. But I do believe they went to that idea because they had Phil frickin' Tippett available to them. And they're like, yeah, we got to have a bipedal type of creature. Then we went into what I actually consider the best of the sequels, which is the third, Tremors 3 Back to Perfection. Now, we did lose Fred Ward by that time in the series. He was still alive, but he was no longer taking part. And we get Michael Gross, but Michael Gross is actually given a good sidekick. I believe Earl might have stuck around had he had Cactus Jack, who was the sidekick in this movie. And this movie takes it back to perfection. You're back where everything started. You now have Walter Chang's daughter is running the store, but unfortunately, we go back to the let's change the life cycle again situation. And when we change the life cycle, here we go again with now a new life cycle. And what they decided is it's going to be bipedal, but he's going to have wings, and we're going to call them ass blasters, and they blow fire farts out, and they just use it to propel and float around. It's getting ridiculous at that point. However, before the ass blasters show up, Tremors 3 has some of the best action sequences in it. Burt Gummer is actually swallowed by a graboid at one point. It's actually a fun, exciting movie. So if you haven't seen Tremors 3, and it's also the most difficult of these movies to find, it also kind of sets up the 2003 TV series on Sci-Fi Channel that later came out. While right after that TV series was kind of winding down, that's when they came out with Tremors 4, The Legend Begins is that one. In that one, I thought this was a TV movie. I couldn't find it, but I thought it was made specifically for Sci-Fi, which is where the TV series was on. And what they do is they go back to the beginning of Perfection, and it's a Western. And this time, Michael Gross plays one of his relatives who's kind of a fop. And it just doesn't really work from that standpoint. I'm not saying every time I see Michael Gross, he has to play the same character. But my God, it just didn't work. The character, if they wanted to make him as different from Bert as they could, and it just doesn't work. So those 4 movies were done by Stampede Entertainment. That's the group that wrote the original movie and all of that. After this one is The Legend Begins. At that point, Universal 1440 took over. Universal 1440 is a division of the home media division of Universal, and all they do is push these IPs into the double digits of sequels. They just do one right after another. All 3 of the 1440 sequels had the same director, who had also, if you look at that director at his credits, almost every single one of the movies he made has a number 2 or higher in it, as far as it's a sequel, a threequel, a fourquel. And they started out with Tremors 5. This is where they introduced Jamie Kennedy, who for some reason somebody thought, oh, you know who the young people like? It's Jamie Kennedy. And they brought him in. This was well after Son of Mask, so he had lost all credibility about 15 years earlier. This one, they go to Africa. So each of the Universal 1440 movies start with Michael Gross being in Perfection, and somebody says, hey, you got to come out here and help us with this graboid problem we have. So somehow Burt Gummer has now become James Bond. They go to Africa in 5. That's a bad one, but 6 is the absolute worst. Tremors, A Cold Day in Hell. They get pulled to go to Arctic Canada. Here's the problem. The first scene in the movie has snow.
I thought hell was in Michigan.
You would think that, but the first scene has snow. You don't see snow through the rest of the movie because it was too expensive to film it in Canada. Think about what I just said. It was too expensive to make it in Canada. They went back to Africa, and they had maybe a couple bags of white potato flakes or something to throw around. And they said, oh, here's some snow. It kind of like in the movie Halloween, where John Carpenter had his 3 bags of leaves that they kept moving around. I think that's what happened here. And their whole thing is, oh, you don't see a lot of snow because it's because of climate change and it's just warm in the Arctic. And it's like, why do you make a movie called A Cold Day in Hell? It's supposed to be about in the Arctic, and then you shoot it in Africa. Then just change the name of it. Make it something else. It was so bad. And Jamie Kennedy just, he sucks the life out of every scene he's in. The only reason anybody watches these Tremor movies, 5 and 6, is that Michael Gross is in them. And the effects are actually CGI at this point, and they're fairly decent. The problem is they've gone away from, if you look at Stumpy there, they've gone away from that type of tongue, that they have these tongues that are very aggressive looking, and they have teeth on them and all this stuff that they go right over your entire face and pull you in. It feels a little too aggressive, and their thing is, oh, this is a different species, and this is a different species of graboids. And now we're not getting a new life cycle each time. We're getting a different species. Like the African one is much longer, and the little tongues can come out and live on their own, and you know, all this. And they do that in like one scene, and then they never mention it again. It's like all this really dumb stuff. Then we get to the last one. Even Jamie Kennedy wouldn't show up for this one. They got John Hader, that's right, Napoleon Dynamite, to play opposite of Burt Gummer. Here's the thing. John Hader was a lot better in the movie than Jamie Kennedy's character ever was. He's just kind of the guy that's there that day. And Shrieker Island, I would say, of the Universal 1440 movies, is probably the best of that group. But that's kind of like picking the tallest midget. It really is not a good set of movies. I would put it just slightly worse than The Legend Begins. Now, something that you probably have seen in the news lately is that they just recently, Stampede Entertainment got the rights back to Tremors. Universal is no longer the sole rights holder. They got them back, and they plan on making a movie, and they are actively engaged in trying to get a deal together with Kevin Bacon. That is being worked
Yay!
on. One of the things I learned is that they are basing it on a graphic novel that was created, and I happen to have, where's I got it? I have a picture from the cover of the comic book and a test shoot that was done for it. Here it comes. Yeah. So this is what they're going to be making. This movie coming very soon.
You're such a jerk.
Actually, I think Kevin Bacon is going to make this movie, because if you look at what he's taking these days, he has changed his opinion on Tremors. I think that movie's going to get made. It's just a shame that we don't have Fred Ward among us anymore. So
I saw a quote that Kevin Bacon said Tremors was the most fun he had making a movie after all it was said and done.
Yeah. I really think it would be fun to see them make another movie. So I think we're all kind of fingers crossed. Hopefully they don't come up with 3 more life cycles to the thing and, you know, that sort of stuff. But I think they've had enough time to see what worked and didn't work in all the sequels that they could probably do something that'd be a little bit better. But they'd have to explain, 30 years have passed.
Or they could pull a Halloween and just go
reboot.
Now this is the timeline.
Right.
None of these.
What would any of you think about a Tremors movie in a city type setting?
That's what I've been hoping for. The only problem with that is all the concrete, right?
Yeah.
And they've kind of established that the concrete would give them a headache.
Yeah, they got them.
If
maybe small town, rural
right.
town instead of a isolated
like
place.
Plum.
Yes.
I would think the suburbs.
With all the mines that we have.
Yes. That'd be a perfect story.
See?
Oh, we're surrounded. There's mines all over the place in Plumboro.
Mines.
Yes.
Oh, you said mines. I'm like,
yes,
no, they're going to put up a wall.
Yes, it's a town full of purple mimes that live in the mine.
Oh, my God. All right. We are going to go to the promos for everybody. We are over time, but this is a special, so I kind of expected we were going to be going overtime. Want to remind everybody that our next Dead on Thursday, we are going to have Dead on the Bases next week with little Jeffy. Hopefully he's feeling better by the time he returns.
We'll have Stumpy watch the movie.
Otherwise it will be Stumpy, and probably we'll talk just slightly less than Jeff. Mike, what are you up to with Dragon's Roost?
We have a couple of books that will be coming out soon, and if you are anywhere near the southeastern sort of kind of Michigan area, come out and see us in a couple of weeks, May 10th at the Halfway to Halloween in Ann Arbor.
Fantastic.
Like over 150 Halloween vendors, and a couple of the local haunted attractions have gotten together where they've each done like one room and made like a little mini haunted house to go through.
That's great. All right. Tim, what's going on at Darkside?
Yeah, Darkside Collectibles, and we're doing great. Open every day but Tuesdays. We're starting just now to begin online sales where you can order online for in-store pickup or for delivery. So that is coming soon. That's in the works. Other than that, yeah, we're just no major events or anything coming up thus far. Just here every day. We got great products from Sideshow Collectibles, NECA, Trick or Treat Studios, and then local artists from all around the area. Please stop by and check us out.
Tim, are you impressed that I found that video on your Instagram and had it ready for tonight?
I'm extremely impressed.
Thank you.
Yes. I appreciate all of your support, sir.
Well, thank you for coming on the show and talking about it. We should also mention Horror Realm. Let's see if it comes up. It came up with the wrong date again.
Dun,
it's
dun,
unbelievable.
Dun. Oh, man, I got to get my stuff ready.
I fixed it earlier today. I had it running. But it is coming up in next year in the end of February, beginning of March. We have already posted 8 of the panel interviews from this year's, and we have some exciting ones coming up next. Coming up this Saturday, we have the Terrifier panel will be out on our website, followed the following, I believe it's on Tuesday, we'll be putting out the Robert Russler, the full interview. And then to finish things off on, I believe it's May 1st, or no, it's the first Saturday in May, which would be the 3rd. We have Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which I have to say I was not available to watch Killer Clowns when Mike had first done it. It's a really good interview. I think we got 2 of the strongest interviews finishing things up here. So
and they were the most fun.
They were having a blast, and they kept, what was good about that panel interview is they kept interacting with each other. They weren't waiting for their little prompt to talk. They were riffing off of what the other guy just said, and sometimes leaning back and saying, "Isn't that more your department?" and that sort of thing. A really, really good interview, and I learned a few things that I wrote down that I have been, during the interviews as I've been doing them, I've been writing down some stuff that I hope to add to Wikipedia. I got to learn how to edit in Wikipedia because there's some stuff there that people don't know that I really want to add in onto Wikipedia. They had some nuggets in each of these interviews that I was able to find.
That was his little ode to Jeffy Jeff, who's not here. You don't know.
Yeah, you don't know. So, Suzy, anything you want to promote?
I don't think so. Not yet. There's stuff coming up, but not yet.
And we're 2 weeks away from, I believe now streaming is in 2 weeks.
Yay!
So, will
Which,
be.
Suzy, we should do
It's
from
the
Dark
last
Side
now streaming.
Collectibles.
Oh, that's right. It's going to be live
Yes,
from
'cause
Dark
it's the
Side
last one of the
Collectibles.
season.
Yes, and we're going to be using this software, which we had a few little gaffes with, but not too shabby. Not too shabby. And Suzy had one little issue, but the rest of the show has gone, where's some wood. But it went fairly good for a first time with software. So I'm pretty
Hope you
excited
all remember
about
what you
that.
said, because none of this recorded.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Do you know how many times I've looked? I've looked at that little record button to make sure she's
I
going.
see you keep looking down.
I'm still waiting for that timer.
Yeah. Well, if we timed our shows, we'd be in trouble because we're at about $1.30 now with the show. But I think we all knew we were going to talk quite a bit about this. So I appreciate everybody for your
It's
participation
Tremors
tonight.
and it's Kevin Bacon.
It's good
And
time.
this
Somebody
show is
get some
dedicated
cold water
to-
for her. Get some cold water over there. Oh, she overheated the camera. It went out completely. My God. All right.
Just like Tremors, we're going to have to give a special shout out to Kira Sedgwick and Travis Bacon.
All right. Well, fantastic. We're going to call it a night. Everybody stay above ground, and we'll see you soon here on Otherworldly Culture. OtherWorldlyCulture.com.
Subscribe, like, and comment on our posts all over social media and our site, otherworldlyculture.com.